Hello and welcome to Summary Judgment from our media center in central Connecticut. My name is Ed Peruta and the show is hosted by attorney Rachel Baird, and she normally does the opening, but I decided to do it today because I'm going to be saying some things that are attributable to me and no one else. And what day is today, the 16th?
It is.
5 days I'll be 72.
January 16th.
I made it.
I
made it. Okay.
Not cool.
This show is an outlet for people on the other side of the camera to discuss their issues if they so choose. This show is a place where somebody sends us information, we do a little homework, and if we feel like it, we jump into the pond and swim with the sharks. I received a piece of correspondence that is a public record in the Wethersfield Town Hall. It is a piece of correspondence unsigned that went to, and it's funny because it went to Edward Peruta, comma, Amy Morin Bello, and a copy evidently went to current Mayor Rell 2 weeks ago, and this is an older document. It said there was no action taken. Nobody did anything about it. What it is, and I've seen this type of letter before.
Do you need some water?
Yeah.
Okay.
This letter is supported by the silent majority of the Wethersfield Police Department. We must communicate at this point by anonymous letter. The operating environment at the Wethersfield Police Department has become toxic since the removal of our police chief, James Citron. Now, I know Chief Citron. I've known Chief Citron for 47 years. He's been on the Wethersfield Police Department for 47 years. And I believe it was November 23rd, he was put on administrative leave. Now, I knew about it the day it happened. And I chose not to ask any questions, just to see where it was going. Because for all I know, maybe Jimmy Citron did something wrong. So I started to look into this quietly behind the scenes. I know why he was put on administrative leave. And I'm aware of some of the things that may have gone on during that period of time, since November 23rd. I can tell everybody he's going to be back in the chief's office on Monday morning. Okay? What's that, the 18th? He's going to be back in the chief's office on the 18th. But it is very upsetting to me to realize how he got back in on the 18th. And it's my understanding that he was put on administrative leave, quote unquote, for a reason. And that's no slight, no small matter when you put a chief on administrative leave and threaten his job, okay, because you want him gone. But it's even worse when you fail to follow through and you make a statement like I've heard was made. Give us your retirement date and all of this goes away. Give us your retirement date and all of this goes away.
Now, can I interject at any point?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I don't know how it is in other states, although I suspect it's the same, but the position of chief of police in Connecticut is very political. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
And that there are chiefs of police in Connecticut, according to some police officers that I've spoken to, who basically grovel for their job and do anything that the town manager or the mayor or whoever the managing person is under that political system in the town are really agents of these people who are not even law enforcement. Because they know their jobs are beholden to these people. They're not part of a union. And in certain circumstances, if they don't do what management wants them to do, then they're out.
Let me see if I can. You're 100% correct.
And what happens is, under those circumstances, sometimes, is that the chief of police, who's the head of what many people call a quasi-military institution, is not really there for the men and women under his or her leadership. He's looking out for his own tail with management, even if that means sacrificing the people underneath him.
Government administrations want to control law enforcement. I can tell you there's a town in Connecticut that if you go to the wrong house on a criminal complaint, your ass is grass unless you turn it over to the detective division or you bring it in-house to review it before you do it because of who the person is that lives at the house. That's common. Who's on what side? Who's on the good side? Who's on the bad side of politicians? But to say to here's what started to bother me. Between November 23rd and I guess the other day, the town did not put out a press release that Chief Citran had been put on administrative leave. That's a big thing. That's a big thing. Nope. It's my understanding that the website for the Wethersfield Police Department may have temporarily changed to show, and I guess you can go look back, do a look back at the webpage and see, but they had a different acting chief in his photograph. And when the media caught on to it and called the town hall, all of a sudden Jimmy Citran's picture went back up. What was the town of Wethersfield afraid of in going after Chief Citran? What games were they playing that they didn't want exposed? Now, I'll tell you what it comes down to. And trust me, I can't give a complete history story verbatim. An employee was being disciplined. And the chief had one attitude, and the manager had another attitude. And the manager suspended an employee for an outrageous, the terms of the suspension and the what do you call it?
Discipline.
Discipline was outrageous.
Let's tell people how it works. So
Well, we're going to get, go ahead.
So police officers are part of a union.
They are.
And when there's something that happens, there's an internal investigation that's done when there's a complaint about the officer. And at the end of the internal investigation, there is a recommendation to either sustain, exonerate, whatever, find the person responsible. And then that goes to the chief to review. And the chief can either recommend discipline or not recommend discipline or overturn the decision.
You're right, but I can get even more clear. I can clarify that even more. I guess the manager told the chief what discipline to issue.
And I don't think that's unusual.
And the police chief disagreed. And what happens was the employee goes to the union. The union files a grievance or says this is bad, and it starts to begin to go through a process. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And I guess step 1 is it goes in front of the chief. And the chief either agrees or disagrees. So let's assume that the manager is the one who dictated the suspension and the terms of the suspension and the discipline. And the union and the employee go up to step 1 to the chief. And the chief says, "No, I overturn it. This is what it's going to be. It's going to be this, this, and this. Or this and this." The manager then alleges that constituted insubordination. When in fact, that's the contract.
Right.
That's the town charter, that's the contract.
Well, it's step
Is that-
one of
is
the grievance.
step one. It goes to the agreement. And in step one, the chief says, no, I don't agree. This is not right. He's running his department. And this isn't the first time that Chief Citran has run into problems with the administration in the town of Wethersfield. And I can very quickly give you a past one with a different manager. The police department seizes $30,000 in drug money and vehicles that are sold at auction. And he's got a pot of $40,000. And he says, I'm going to buy a new SUV for drug business. And the manager calls him up and says, no, you're not. You're not spending that money. You can't do that. And the chief says, wait a minute. The law says, federal estate, that we, the chief of the department, gets to spend the seized money and asset funds as we see fit. Not the council, not a budget process. We get to spend that money the way we want to spend it. That was with the previous manager. And Jimmy won the issue because that was the law. It is the law. Now, Chief Citran didn't agree with the manager, and during the process exercised his contractual right in step one to overturn the manager's discipline and then issue a discipline, far less, but discipline.
Goodness knows, Chief Rovella used to do it in the Hartford Police Department
Right.
a lot.
Right. Now, so now the town has not said anything to anyone. Nobody knew that Chief Citran was out on administrative leave. Huh. That's funny.
And I believe that if any officer in the police department would have gone public with it or talked about it, they could have been disciplined for airing. I mean, basically airing internal things in public, and and making the police department look bad, which is actually policy.
I've always believed that government buildings should be made out of glass so we can see what they're doing on the inside, and there should be microphones so we can listen to what they're saying, so we can keep track of them. But this, all of this was supposed to be like quietly under the table. No one was going to talk about it. Nobody was going to discuss it. It wasn't in the media. Nobody knew. Okay? Like I said, I've known Jimmy Citran for 47 years, since he was a rookie on the Wethersfield Police Department. And I believe there's something wrong. And I'm going to give you a situation, because I started asking in other towns. This came down to the work at home policy during COVID. Work at home. Can you do your job from your house remotely? The employee in question could do her job remotely. Push comes to shove, she may have to come into the department and do something, but technically she could do her job remotely. I want to know, and I'm going to ask the town of Wethersfield for their work at home policy. Now, in a letter to the town, I don't have it with me now, there's a section of the town charter which permits the town to enact an emergency ordinance. There could have been enacted in the town, at least in Wethersfield, I think it's section 180 of the Wethersfield Town Code or whatever, but they could have enacted a work at home policy ordinance as to who's entitled to do it, who's not entitled to do it, who gives you permission to do it, who can deny you the permission to do it, etc., 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 down the line. For example, if a assistant town clerk if non-essential employees are sent home, How do you send home and pay them at home a mechanic in the town garage? How do you send home to do their work at home a somebody who works for facilities, vacuuming the floors, mowing the lawns, doing whatever? Now, essential employees, guy that drives a snow truck, he's going to get called in. But I want to know what was the first day somebody was allowed to stay home and work remotely under the COVID era? Who was the first person? When was the first day employees were allowed to stay home? Were they allowed to work from home prior to that under special circumstances? How many people exercised their option to work from home? How many people had to come in while other people were home getting paid? And were they paid while they were home?
Well, that is the big question.
In other words,
public employees.
In other words,
because it would be hard to penalize them and not pay them because of COVID.
Do you say to a mechanic in the town garage, you can't come to work and you can't work at home, so I guess you're going to have to collect unemployment?
But you know, at the beginning of this, a lot of union reps were really wondering what was going to happen because these people, most of them are part of unions, and you just can't stop paying them for
You
something.
can't willy-nilly make up rules as you go. You cannot do it. Now, it goes all the way back. What you were talking about goes all the way back to a chief of police in Hamden, Connecticut, who fought his termination. And the legislature passed a law that said you can only remove a police chief for just cause. Mm-hmm. And that was a high hurdle to get over for the town. I don't want a police chief who does the political biddings, does the political, whatever they say you do. Now, I can understand the public outcry of a pack of wild dogs running around a schoolyard. And all of a sudden, you've got to go take care of it. But usually everything's covered by a policy or procedure. There's very little that happens that's not in writing that somehow leads you into covering it. How do you react to it?
Well, I mean, is there a contract involved when you say a chief can only be moved for just cause? Does that mean they have a lifetime appointment, basically?
It basically says that.
Unless there's just
cause. It
cause.
basically says that, unless there's just cause. But there is a reason.
But there could still be a contract. Like a contract could be an 8-year contract. But if during that contract there's just cause, you could get rid of. We need to check into that.
Now, I don't know, and I know some of these people. I don't know whether these facts are true or not. I haven't really looked into it. But there's a public record, and this is what the public record says. Okay? For many years, ex-employee has stolen time from the town of Wethersfield. It is common knowledge through the WPD, records clerks, dispatchers, and sworn officers have witnessed corrupt activities for years. He has doubled his salary for many years by working private duty jobs.
Who are we?
Then not working.
You gotta be clear who you're talking about. It sounds like you're talking about Chief Citran.
No, we're not. We're not talking about Chief Citran.
It's not clear.
Okay.
What you're doing?
Michael Connolly and Tony Gonzalez.
Well, I didn't
officers, lieutenant and sergeant.
I didn't say you had to name
lieutenant,
names.
Well, I'll name them. You're right. I'll name them. They're saying that the records for dispatch sworn officers have witnessed his.
No, can you read slower? I can't understand
Has witnessed his corrupt activities. He has doubled his salary for many years by working private duty jobs. Well, that's his right. Then not working his required shifts. Many times double dipping, being paid by private contractors and the town of Wethersfield for the same hours. Now that's kind of easy to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, these are all allegations.
They're allegations, but they're allegations
it just
in writing.
Disarray.
They're allegations in writing that were presented to the town, and the question is has the town looked into them? Is the town looking into them?
Well, I mean, that's the other issue. they were presented to the town, but they're anonymous. You know, and an anonymous complaint, is the town really obligated to look into it when it's anonymous?
No. But if it wants to, it can.
Right.
In other words, wait a minute. I'm going to look into this myself, just see if there's any credibility in this. Okay. I don't understand. For years, Connolly flexes his shifts or does swaps of days 8 to 4 to the 4 p.m. night shift. He works the private job, comes on duty, but never stays until midnight. He is not supervised on the 4 p.m. to midnight shift, but everyone sees what he is doing. For him to now claim others are not working their required hours is hypocrisy. Because that was one of the allegations faced to Jim Citran, was not working required hours.
Well, nobody was accusing Chief Citran of that.
Chief Citran had to rule on a case.
Right.
Okay.
Clarify that.
Many times during the independent investigation, Connolly was seen meeting with an attorney, Palomino, while wearing his traffic uniform, duty uniform, meaning while being paid by a private contractor, he would get relieved or leave his private duty site to come hang out at the station. We believe his key job, his key FOB record, and PD cameras can confirm his unlawful activities. Connolly has full access to all electrical monitoring and may or may not have the ability to edit out his bad behavior. So they're saying that, you know, when you're on a private job out on the road, you're being paid by the contractor, and then you come into headquarters to converse with Attorney Palomino, who was conducting the investigation about Jimmy Citran, by the way, and other things. Okay, who's working the job for the private money? Well, the town puts an officer to replace him. He's still getting paid, and he's not there. Okay, all right. But I don't think there's a policy about splitting up or sharing private duty pay.
Or people get breaks, and yeah, I have to be honest. This kind of thing makes me really uncomfortable.
Well, okay, listen. There's things I'm saying today that you have absolutely nothing to do with. You're just sitting here while I.
Well, but I can still comment.
Absolutely. So let me wrap this up. No human being could work the amount of shifts, hours, week after week, year after year. However, it is possible if you don't work your WPD shift. Okay. We believe an independent investigation would reveal unlawful criminal behavior committed by Connolly for years. One event, and it was Connolly and Lieutenant Crabtree, after finishing a private duty job, approached Ellen Walsh and asked her to change the time on their work slip. And there's some other stuff in the allegation. Connolly lied. They've heard Connolly and Gonzalez badmouthing the chief in the department.
So what this all comes down to is there are different camps in the department, and one camp went after the other one. Lieutenant Connolly is on one side. Chief Citran, apparently, according to this letter, is on the other side. Lieutenant Connolly went after Chief Citran, so Chief Citran supporters are going after Lieutenant Connolly. You know, and this backbiting, it's funny when people say
you're in it now, backbiting. You're into it now.
When people say the thin blue line that, you know, police officers protect each other and stand behind each other, if you really delve into what occurs in police departments but between police officers, it's not true. It's just not. It appears that way from the outside, but this is not abnormal, is what I'm trying to say.
The thin blue line is a circle, and it circles law enforcement officers. They fight amongst themselves within the blue line.
That's true.
Within the circle.
That's true.
But they defend at all costs from anybody outside the circle.
Right.
Okay? Now, what I'm trying to say is this. It's the backbiting. Somebody in the Wethersfield Police Department wants to be the chief. And as long as James Citran sits in the office in the chair, the person who desires to sit there can't. So what you do is you start to backbite. You start to scrutinize. You start to look at. You start to report. And maybe you write an anonymous letter. Maybe the chief does make mistakes, as does everybody. But a 47-year of honorable service, a police chief that has no nicks in his armor, administrative leave, and the threat of termination, and all of this goes away if you give us your retirement date. All of this goes away if you give us your retirement date. What in God's name is that?
Well, I mean, it's the rough and tumble of the workplace.
In the
as they would say in the courts, when you sue for emotional distress in the workplace, it's the rough and tumble of the workplace, and just suck it up, and that's how it is.
But what would the public say if the chief was accused of murder, and somebody said to him, "Just give us the date"?
Well, it's different,
and it all
though.
goes away. No,
you can't compare the two. Number one, they wouldn't do that.
There was a police officer back in my day who, there was a report at 8:30 in the morning that there was a bicycle on the side of the road. And the officer was dispatched. He picked up the bicycle, he put it in the trunk of the car, and he picked it up. And about 3:30 in the afternoon, the father came in with his son saying, "We can't find our bicycle. He left it at the bus stop. It's gone." And so they called the officer in, and they said, "Well, you went there?" He said, "Well, I was gone when I got there." And then 2 weeks later, they saw the officer's sister riding a bike. So they called the officer into the chief's office, and they go, "You have a choice. Be arrested and fired, or you can resign and simply be arrested." Now,
Or I thought you were going to say this. You could be arrested, or if you resign, it stops here.
well, it couldn't stop there, but
It does. I had that case where it did.
In this case, it couldn't stop there.
Not that one.
Because this officer is the same officer that lent his firearm to a friend who had discharged in a hotel in Hartford when I guess the guy was with a hooker.
But I wasn't talking about your case. I was talking about other cases where if you resign,
it just goes away.
The investigation goes away.
It goes
so
away.
You're asking how you can let a criminal act, go uninvestigated. Well, the person resigns, and it does happen because, little known fact, police officers have a lot of discretion about what they investigate or don't investigate.
Supposedly, the town of Wethersfield may have retained an attorney.
They all do that now for liability purposes.
No, it's not liability.
Oh.
It's attorney-client privilege. You can't FOI the investigative file.
Right.
Because it's in the possession of the
Good
attorney.
point.
But in fact, public records are supposed to be stored in the town hall, not in a private law firm. But would the town be willing to open up the file that they created regarding Chief James Citran? Because James Citran had the option, if they were going to terminate him, whatever, he had the option of a public hearing on the topic in front of the Wethersfield Town Council. And I got to tell you, there's a lot of people in this town who like and respect Chief James Citran. And the political community in Wethersfield knows that well. Now the managers come into town, and he's kind of new to the area or whatever, okay? And he may not understand. But public safety politics are the dirtiest politics you will ever see in your life. But I'm just telling you, there's going to be more to this. And I'm getting kind of away from Chief Citran. I'm going to go and say, were these allegations received by the town? Did anybody bother to at least smell the kitchen to see if anything was in the oven? Did anybody bother to just look to see if any of that was true? That's all. Did anybody look to see if it was true? Or were they concerned that the people who are discussing Chief Citran may in fact be the subject of these allegations, and the water gets dirtier and dirtier and dirtier? Okay? Now, I'm going to keep looking. I'm going to be filing some FOI requests with the town. Not so much on Chief Citran, but about some of this stuff. And I asked in the town of Rocky Hill, how do you go home and work from home if you are working at the town garage swinging a wrench? How do you go home if your job is to mow the grass and rake the leaves? I don't know. I don't know. So I have another topic that is going to be very quick. Okay?
Gary Nance is on the line.
Gary, did we get you? Oh, Gary did. Uh-oh. No. I gotta. Gary, did we get you? Hello?
Hello, is this Ed?
What's that music in the background?
And it's on your side.
Oh, boy.
Huh.
We got it now?
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, you got it now.
Perfect.
All right. The case we were talking about earlier was Tico,
We're gonna.
Tango, Echo, Kilo, Oscar Hotel.
Let me just introduce you, Gary. Let me introduce you a bit.
Okay.
Our West Coast researcher.
Yeah, this is Gary Nance, and he sent us a case this week, and he helps us a lot behind the scenes about a recent Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decision about Miranda
And the Fifth Amendment.
and the Fifth Amendment. So go ahead, Gary.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Tico v. County of Los Angeles, and it involves a defendant. I guess he was in the workplace accused of something, and he made a statement that was un-Mirandized.
He gave a statement?
I guess it was I don't know how it worked. Like maybe it was
Verbal.
he was given a written statement and he signed it or something. But
Okay.
Now he wrote a statement.
There
Okay.
was no Miranda. There was no Miranda warning, and then that statement was used as evidence in a trial, and it all circled around to the I guess the validity of the statement being un-Mirandized is insufficient evidence, so the case got tossed.
Well, it sounds like there is a disagreement among the 11 circuits in the United States of Appeals whether you actually have to say the words under Miranda or whether the totality of the circumstances would lead someone to believe that
They should keep their mouth shut.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
And this court said this guy went to trial and he got not guilty, and then he sued the Los Angeles County
Yeah.
for civil rights violations under the Fifth Amendment, and even the district court couldn't decide how to instruct the jury on how they should consider him not being Mirandized, whether they should look at it like it was a coerced confession or whether it was simply this man wasn't given his Miranda rights. And the Ninth Circuit came out and said, yeah, you have to say the actual words. You can't change a constitutional right by passing a law or by substituting something else for it. You actually
Policy,
have to say
procedure,
the words.
regulation, or law
Right.
can't change the Constitution.
But it'll be interesting if the Supreme Court takes up this issue, because they could reverse that and say, no,
could.
it's the totality of the circumstances. We don't know.
They could.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of changes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty.
All right, listen to the next one.
So hey,
Go ahead.
so Rachel,
Yes.
did you find your keys?
Oh,
Hold on.
did Ed tell you about this?
We were supposed to.
No. Ed didn't say anything.
Hold on. No.
I've
Hold
got
on.
good sources.
Listen. Rachel was at the office and she was trying to get back to the studio to do the show. And she couldn't find her keys. She looked high and low. And I even put one of these key holders on the door going out. So I said, if you hang your keys there, you'll always know where they are. Well, Rachel couldn't find her keys. She went into every room and we systematically on the phone said, okay, look on the floor. Nope. Look on every chair. Nope. Look on every table or flat surface. Nope.
Okay,
she couldn't find it. Finally, she says, I found them. I said, where? She said, I'll tell you when I get back. Evidently, there's a hole, there's a rip in her coat, a small rip above the pocket. And if you put your hand in there, you go inside between the lining and the exterior of the coat. She evidently dropped the keys in the hole rather than in the pocket. So when you go in the pocket, it only goes down so far. So finally, she saw the rip. She goes, no way. Found her keys.
End of story.
End of story. Listen to the next one.
All right.
Keep in contact,
Listen
Gary.
to the next one, Gary.
Bye.
All right.
Right.
How do I? Did I hang that up?
Ariel will take care of it. Go
Okay.
ahead.
This past week, and I'm not going to get into who did what, how, why, when, how, whatever.
I don't know what's going to come out of your
for,
mouth
for
next.
200 plus years,
Yeah.
we have prided ourselves as Americans as being the best government system in the world. We've actually gone into other countries and tried to convince them to come to a form of government similar to ours, with a constitution, with a Senate, with a House, with a president, with a court, everything. You know, our form of government is great. It's been around here for 200 years and is still going. Then there's the other side that says, even Rome fell. Okay? And you have to go overseas, like I have, go overseas and talk to people in more than one country, and people don't like us. They don't like Americans. They think that Americans are arrogant. But our form of government is the best form of government. Even though I think it's full of shit and it's got a lot of dirt in the corners. But I saw some photographs.
Well, the good point about our government is it allows for people to be flawed and accounts for it so that the country can still run despite it, not that it says it's
right. We have a law called Miranda. And the government finds a way not to say it and still get a conviction. I saw photographs that disturbed me over the last 10 days. People climbing the walls, the exterior walls of the Capitol to get inside. People inside the Capitol. People inside Pelosi's office. People chasing police. A mob. A mob that had zip ties and a van. There's alleged vans with fire bombs. I expect to see this in another country because we advocate to groups in other countries for regime change. And everybody was standing up on deck and they're talking about what's going on, what's going on. Nobody knew shit, except they were breaking out cots, baby bottles, live ammunition, all kinds of shit. Something's going on. We didn't know there was a battle in Iraq, between
not
Israel.
Iraq.
I mean, Israel and Egypt,
Yeah.
the 6-Day War. We didn't know about it. Eventually they told us. And when we asked about the ship, they said, oh, that's the USS. It got torpedoed. Torpedoed. You know what a torpedo is? Something that comes out of a submarine or a boat, goes underwater and sinks a boat. So we're young Marines, right? It's 1967. I'm going, fucking torpedoes went out in World War II. What the fuck are you saying? Everybody grabbed their mattress from down below decks, and at night we brought them up onto the deck, and we were sleeping on deck because I said, I ain't getting torpedoed while I'm down in the bottom of the ship. That ain't happening. I mean, but all of us Marines were shocked, in 1967, you go, we have to worry about torpedoes? There's people out there shooting torpedoes? No, I can't do that. It was nuts. But getting back to this, I'm not going to talk anymore about the green zone.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think we're out of time.
No, you have to call it.
We
Oh,
do?
okay.
No, did it?
I don't.
No,
Maybe.
must have gone.
Yep.
Okay, call back. Who was it? Do we know? A John?
You should still be on the line.
Well, Not there.
Yeah, not that.
Um,
Maybe next week.
maybe next week. 3 minutes left. I just don't know how this is going to unfold with the inauguration. But I heard some very.
It could go just fine.
I heard on Bill Maher last night,
Mhm.
and I was up because I couldn't sleep, and he said, and I agree. Why all of the pomp and ceremony? All you need is a judge, a Bible,
It's
a
true.
witness, and a judge.
Aren't we over that?
Swear him in. Swear him in at the Capitol.
You know, that
and he
is
rides away as the
that's
president.
an excellent point. We have people invading the Capitol and doing all this stuff. Really, isn't it time to put away all that bullshit and just
Right.
swear the
and
person
don't
in?
call it I'm afraid of the mob. Just call it economical sense.
Yeah,
Okay,
COVID
we don't
sense.
as Americans, we don't need to pay for the pomp and ceremony when there are people in hospitals on respirators and there's not enough vaccines getting around.
Yeah, best point of the show you made right there. I agree
So,
completely. Everybody have
having
a great
said that,
week.
we're out of here. We'll see you next week.